Okay. Great.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the presentation of environmental assessments for the Community First Choice Program presented by me, Ashanti Hunter. I'll pass it on.
Good afternoon. My name is Occupational. I'm one of the clinicians here at Maryland Department of Health.
I'm Chelsea Heyman. I'm actually with the Maryland Department of Disabilities and really excited to have the Maryland Department of Health presenting on environmental assessments, and then also occupational therapist Kat Grill will be presenting after. So these two presentations are certainly very aligned with each other. So thanks everyone for joining.
Hi, my name is Wanda Lusby. I'm a clinical program consultant, and I'm here regarding the environmental adaptations through the Community First Choice Program.
Do we have Faria? Is that it? All right.
So I guess I'll start. I guess I start this off. I'm going to just talk a little bit about the eligibility and enrollment for Medicaid participants who are eligible to receive an environmental assessment to find out what type of accessibility and adaptations would benefit them in their residence in the community. So individuals within the Maryland Medicaid system who apply for the Community First Choice Program are eligible if they meet a nursing facility or intermediate level of care. And that typically begins with an application or from the local health department who conducts an assessment, and we call it an inter-eye assessment, where they get a lot of comprehensive information about a participant, and that information is uploaded to the department, and it produces or determines their level of care. So anyone who has Medicaid and meets this level of care and also some financial eligibility for Medicaid will be able to apply and enroll in the Community First Choice Program. And one of the services that are available under the Community First Choice Program is an environmental assessment. And when that happens, and you'll hear more about the assessment, as the presentation moves forward. But when the environmental assessment happens, it includes, the final report may include recommendations for adaptations that will increase individuals' independence or substitute their need for human assistance with their instrumental and activities of daily living. Particularly of importance for the Community First Choice Program is that not all recommendations that are given on an environmental assessment are necessarily eligible. And we do have regulations that we review the recommendations against. And those recommendations that are in line with the Community First Choice regulations can in fact be approved. So once a person is eligible for an environmental assessment, they have an environmental assessment, the support planning agency who works with a participant, sort of like a case manager, is responsible for helping them to gather information, helping them to upload so the department can review their requests. And so that's their sort of liaison between themselves and the community and the department. They are the individuals that are important with getting us all the information that we need to conduct our review of their requests. And we call that a plan of service. And so that's submitted on behalf of a participant by way of a supports planner who helps them and facilitate that information transfer process.
Okay, so an environmental assessment. It is an assessment of a person's home, that may be completed upon request to identify the improvements to make the house functional and safe for the participant. Do know that environmental assessments are completed by occupational therapists. There is no limitation to the number of environmental assessments a resident can request through our program. So if the resident moves or potentially have a significant change in health, if they fell or anything, they can always request an environmental assessment. What's included in an environmental assessment is an evaluation of the condition of the participant, environmental factors in the facility or the home, the participant's ability to perform ADLs, the participant's strength, their range of motion and endurance, and a participant's need for assistive devices and equipment. So with our environmental adaptations, in order to get an environmental adaptation, an environmental assessment must be completed before submitting a request for that environmental adaptation. So that assessment must be completed by the occupational therapist before any request can be made to the department. Multiple quotes and bids are required for purchases exceeding $1,000. And the participant has a combined limit of $15,780 over 3 years, which is combined with technology. So the environmental adaptations, what they can include, this is just a snap list here. Automatic door openers, grab bars, ramps, repairs to previous adaptations, stair glides or stair lifts, walk-in or barrier-free showers, outside railings, handicap accessible kitchens or bathrooms, and others. So things like repairs to previous adaptations would be things like broken stair lifts, possible dead bags. Yep. The environmental adaptations may not include our area of general maintenance, such as carpeting, roof repair, mold, and central air conditioning. Not a direct medical or remedial benefit of the participant. Add to the home's total square footage or modify the exterior of the home. It may not include adaptations of generators, washer or dryers, or wall paddings. Also, with environmental adaptations, a participant is able to request technology items. Now, most of these equipments and supplies are covered under the Medicaid disposable medical supplies and durable medical equipment. So that's just DMS and DME. They must be billed first if it is coverable. All our case managers, they have access to a DMS and DME list, and they're able to see that list and see the items that's on there. So if it's not determined medically necessary by DMS or DME, it cannot be covered as technology. Items not covered under the DMS and DME formulary may be covered under CFC if it substitutes for human assistance and is supported by regulations. So in order for us to cover the technology item, they also must provide a denial letter, and we also must ensure that it substitutes for human assistance. But as I said, most of these technology items can be found on a DMS, DME list. Items such as, your shower chairs, your bedside commodes. Technology covered under these programs include non-experimental technology or adaptive equipment, excluding service animals, which enables a participant to live in the community and participate in community activities. The technology must prevent the participants' institutionalization, ensure the participants' health, safety, and independence, specifically related to their ADLs and IADLs within the approved POS. As mentioned, all of these items requested through our department must be approved through the plan of service, and that's the department I currently work for. Some examples of technology are audio devices for the blind, communication devices for speech, hearing, and sight, over-the-bed tables, and water temperature gauges. Also things like pill boxes, things that's not covered under technology, are things for your pet, cell phones, remote control, game systems, TVs, any Wi-Fi's. It has to be directly benefit for the participants to increase their independence and human assistance. And that will bring us to a conclusion of our presentation for environmental adaptations and technology. Do we have any questions or comments?
For any questions, you're welcome to put them in the Q&A,
Mhm.
but I'll also monitor the chat as well. Okay, Aaron Corn raised your hand. Give me 1 second. Okay, Aaron, you should be able to unmute.
I have a question. Given everything that's been going on with COVID in regards to supply and demand and expense, has there been any talks about increasing the $15,000 limit?
Yes, it was actually just recently increased from 15,000 to the 15,700. We added
780, I think.
780, 780, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
There's a few questions in the chat. Ria asked, I missed the specifics about service animal. Are they not covered?
No, they're not covered under our program.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I said excluded in service animals.
The POS submission alert still reflects $15,000 even. Would this be updated?
I noticed that, yes, LTSS, the updates, they do monthly updates. We do like to let them know, make it a priority. Sometimes they can be a little delayed, but hopefully it's with the upcoming updates that we have soon. Londa and Harold, if you know anything more recent, but I believe we let LTSS system know, and I know what you're talking about. That box will come up indicating that the price is $15,000, but we do know we have it in the system as the 15,780. And we have,
Let's see. Michelle Brown Mosley asked, is this program similar to CHAMP? That's a Baltimore County program.
can I get a little,
I'm not familiar with that program.
yeah, I don't know about that program. Can I get a little more background?
Is that through the local Department of Social Service
Or-
or?
DSS? Or is it
Okay, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, CHAMP is the program that we use to submit for grant funding for modifications. So I didn't know if it would interfere with your program, or can they do both? If there's like a large project or something, or CHAMP doesn't cover something that you guys may cover.
Well,
Will we be able to use that, your
yeah.
program?
So environmental adaptations under Community First Choice, we do not allow for grouped or multiple payers.
Okay.
The department pays for an item, and so we don't go into negotiation with other third party or second party payers. So as long as it's a device or adaptation that falls within our regulations and it meets our program parameters, we would review and consider it as a one item and the department paying for that one item, but we would not, jointly be involved in the payment.
Okay. Do these individuals have to be a voucher holder or can it be anybody?
These are individuals who are approved for Medicaid, Maryland Medicaid,
Okay, I
and
see.
who meet the nursing, who meet the level of care, and they're eligible, and they're actually enrolled in the Community First Choice program.
Oh, okay.
They can also be eligible financially
Yeah.
through a home and community-based waiver option, but it would all be financial, either they're Medicaid approved or they're approved through the financial restrictions on that waiver program. But if you've got individuals that have more income and they can be eligible for grants under like the CHAMP program, I mean, obviously we wouldn't be able to
Assist them.
assist them due to the
Okay.
financial restrictions.
So I can refer these to individuals I get calls from who are like homeless, who are not voucher holders and don't have have zero income.
Well, for financial adaptations, they would have to have a place that they're staying within the community. So
Okay.
I mean, if they're homeless, they don't necessarily have a home that we could adapt.
Right. Okay.
All right. Christina George asks, what agencies do you use to do an assessment?
The environmental assessment, the providers we use. Is that what you're asking?
I believe
Yeah, the
so.
providers we have. We have a
Mhm.
few providers, right, guys? I think we have Dan Mack. We have, I mean,
There,
I don't have the list on me of right now, but
I definitely know.
to name a few, I don't even think, yeah, what'd you say, Harold?
I'll say we have a handful. So these
Yeah.
have to be, providers that are already vetted with Maryland Medicaid, and they're already in our provider pool, and they go through the provider enrollment sort of process.
Right, they have to be a participant on a program in order to receive any of this service here.
There is some information online that actually lists the providers, but that would be specific. I know it's under what we call the support planner guidance.
Mhm.
But all providers need to be a Medicaid
Medicaid.
provider. Some of the ones I can think of off the top of my head would be Senior Smart, USA
Yeah.
Rehab. There's a occupational therapist. I think her name's Jody Geske.
Geske, yeah.
And then oh, I can't think of the other gal's name. But there's at least 5 or 6 that I see quite often. And as long as they are a provider through Medicaid, any of them could be reached out to perform an assessment under our program.
Great. Nina
Or a few,
Russell.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. She asked if someone has recommended something like a smart lock, is that something that would be covered, or would it exclusively be a lockbox? I ask because sometimes for things like Meals on Wheels, they do not want to give different codes to different delivery people, but would rather be able to unlock and then relock the door via an app if they are not able to get out of bed. That's very specific, but I would assume an OT would have to assess for something like that.
Yeah, an assessment would definitely have to be completed with the participant in regards to that specific need. It could potentially be like a case-by-case basis where we have to review to see if that would be appropriate for that participant to be able to use it. Will they be cognitive enough or anything to be able to use that particular device? So we will have to review the assessment and compare it with the ADLs and IADLs and see if it's medically appropriate.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Carol Taliaferro asked, can the EAA providers subcontract their services and work approved on a client's plan of service?
It sounds like the actual person performing the adaptation is what she's talking about. Can they subcontract? So that person, whoever their license, I mean, because these contractors are licensed by the Maryland Labor Department. So whoever they have working for them is going to be operating under their license. So, you know, I'm not sure about subcontracting, but But if we approve a specific vendor, then we are going to expect that vendor to follow through with the adaptation. Now, if they subcontract or they have other agreements with people that work for them, but we're going to go after the vendor if there's any problems.
Mhm.
Makes sense. Joyce Falconhan asks, is the supports planner responsible for procuring the bids over $1,000?
Yes, it's the support planner job to make sure those bids are agreeing from the provider, and that must be provided to us, to the department.
Sounds good.
And if they have any issues or anything like that, gaining multiple bids, I know sometimes people live in very rural areas where it's potentially just that one provider, but that's, again, these are case by case basis, and they will make sure that they contact us and let us know if anything of that nature do arise. But we rarely have that. Most times they're able to find multiple quotes.
Great. Well, I really appreciate
Gloria
you all.
just shared the link too for the providers, the EA provider list for the county.
Oh, great.
Mhm.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you all joining us today and presenting. I know that kind of like as a next step in this presentation, I'm going to have Kat Gurrell, hopefully I'm saying your last name right, Kat, present. Kat's an occupational therapist, so she's going to give us like the occupational therapist side of this, just to get a little bit more of an understanding of, you know, when an OT is going out to do an assessment of a client's house, there's specific things that they're looking for. Kat comes from, well, is based in Hawaii. This is why it's later in the day. So this is very exciting to have you joining us. She's an instructor in the Home Modification Executive Certificate Program at University of Southern California, the School of Gerontology. And she's been doing accessibility assessments and identifying barriers to function and access for clients with disabilities across private, state, commercial, and federal sectors. And so she actually is also has her own business, Thrive for Life LLC, which is the only residential accessibility consulting firm in Hawaii. So Kat, I'm really excited to have your presentation. I don't know if we want to start off with a scenario or if we should just kind of launch into your content. Up to you.
Yeah, we can go into a scenario and then I'll pull up my slides.
Okay, great. Let me get that pulled up. So let me see here. I had it up and then I had another screen up. So here's a scenario that I'll just go ahead and present. The client's name is Monica, and Monica recently moved into a HUD 811 project rental assistance apartment in a property that was acquired and rehabilitated using low-income housing tax credits. Monica has a physical disability that causes her to use a wheelchair and limits the functionality of her legs and feet. Who are some service providers you may encourage her to contact to support identifying what her needs are? Who should your team contact to support her with obtaining modifications that she may need? And then in addition to that, should you be making recommendations or suggestions for modifications she might need within her apartment? So I'll go ahead and put some of these questions in the chat and feel free to answer them. You can also answer them just in the chat by sharing some of your thoughts about those.
Yeah, that's great. So I'll just share my screen and I'll kind of get started as well. But those are great questions to sort of start thinking about as a team if you're supporting people with disabilities who need home modifications in the home setting. How do we approach those needs? Do we make the recommendations? Who do we refer them to? And then how do we follow those recommendations to completion. So thank you for having me. I met Chelsea last year as part of a home modification education and support training program through the National Housing Services Resource Center, supported by the Administration for Community Living and the University of Southern California School of Gerontology. Provided a select number of disability agencies, aging agencies, and other groups additional training on home modifications. And then she asked me to come and share some of the home modification solutions that I've been recommending through the years. So I wear two hats. I'm an instructor for an executive certificate program for home modification, and then my small business, Thrive for Life, does the home modification assessments, but I follow the projects from start to finish. I also do work with a environmental accessibility adaptation program here with the Department of Health in Hawaii, and I'm very familiar with all of the barriers and parameters that you guys were just describing. So I just wanted to start with what is an occupational therapist? These are some of the objectives for today, and I just wanted to go over, you know, how can an OT support your home modification program? More specifically, we'll get into some examples, like what is a tub cut and why are they not recommended, or why do I not recommend them? And examples of small, medium, and large scale home modification solutions where maybe you do have clients who have needs that exceed that 15,780 threshold. What is your teams, what is your program's approach to serve these individuals who have needs that exceed the benefits? Maybe that CHAMP grant funding program, maybe they can't provide the funds that they need. So maybe we'll look at smaller solutions that might solve the issue, or look for funding sources, nonprofits, other areas. My approach is, and I know it's more of a comprehensive approach. I don't discharge my clients until the modifications they need are completed. So I'll oftentimes keep a lot of my clients on my caseload for 6 months, a year, 2, 3 years, even if they're not able to get what they need. So we just keep looking and trying to get the funds for them. So as many of you might know, an occupational therapist, we treat injured, ill, disabled patients through the therapeutic use of everyday activities, where a physical therapist.
Kat, sorry.
Yeah.
Do you want me to put up your slides, or
Yeah.
I can't see them? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Let's try this.
Okay, cool.
There we go.
Yay.
Sorry about that.
That's
All
okay.
right. Thank you. So what is an occupational therapist? Where a physical therapist might work on increasing strength or helping somebody learn how to use stairs or walk again. An occupational therapist really works on the specifics of what they need to do on a daily basis. So the occupation part might be bathing, toileting, feeding, dressing, all of those skills. Where we overlap with a physical therapist, we might both be working on walking, but the occupational therapist will work on how are we going to get to the bathroom, walk to the bathroom, use a assistive device, and safely complete their tasks, activities of daily living for independence. And then in the home setting, we're going to customize the home environment to support their safety and independence. So how can an OT support your home modification program? We're going to ensure that the designs of the home modification meet the needs of the consumer. Oftentimes what we'll see is a consumer or a caregiver or maybe even a property owner has their opinions of what that person needs, but the occupational therapist can really help justify medically what's necessary. And then like I was saying, identify what's the most cost-efficient solution. So small, medium, large scale solutions, or I call it good, better, or best types of solutions to the issues that they're having. And so Sometimes we'll see programs that don't use an occupational therapist. And I'm going to get into just an example of that today where the value of an occupational therapist can really help a team determine what should be done, and also the design needs for a project where it can go really wrong when there isn't the use of a healthcare provider or an occupational therapist. So this is a contractor-led project was on the left, where this is a health plan Medicaid program where they asked the family to go get 3 contractor estimates for a shower renovation to help an individual who had a recent spinal cord injury at a wheelchair level. Contractor Joe was hired. He designed a curbless shower on the left that was designed using ADA principles. It was curbless. It had everything that they needed. It was not large enough to accommodate his needs of elevating his legs after his bowel bladder program. He had an issue called orthostatic hypotension, where after he went to the bathroom, he would feel like he was going to faint. And what their process was to elevate his legs on a chair in the shower and complete his hygiene routine. So when they got the shower completed, they realized that actually the shower that the contractor designed didn't accommodate the length of his legs. And so you can see in the photo on the left, they would put his legs on a lawn chair, but the water, the bathroom floor was not sloped to go into the shower. The water that was accumulated under his legs was actually sloping into his bedroom and causing all kinds of water damage. The health plan, this is years ago, reached out to me and said, can you help fix this problem? Can you help change the way he bathes? Can you help us figure out what's going on with this modification? I went out, I did some education. I kind of looked at the problem and tried to see if we could move his legs a different way. In fact, there was no other way to do it. We actually had to redo the bathroom. On the right, we actually did a larger shower, 5 foot by 5 feet, where he actually couldn't elevate his legs, and the water all stayed inside the shower. The health plan at that time asked me, had they used an OT from the beginning, this wouldn't have happened. And I said, no, because a contractor is not expected to talk to a consumer about their bowel bladder program, but an occupational therapist is. So I'm really pleased to hear that your programs incorporate an OT and just encourage, other funding programs, make sure that they are using a healthcare provider or just confirming that the home modification is medically necessary. Looping them in is really important. So what is a tub cut and why are they not recommended, at least by me? And I think a number of occupational therapists wouldn't recommend them. They are heavily marketed to the elderly population as a way to have a safer transfer into and out of the shower. So if you can see in the photo, they cut out the tub threshold so somebody can step into the tub. But what it doesn't do is reduce the risk of injury stepping into and out of a wet, slippery surface. You still have that step in. The tub cut cost is pretty high. I'm not sure how much it is in Maryland, but there's actually a cheaper solution that I would recommend for a client to try. That's very simple piece of equipment. You probably already know about the tub bench, which this would eliminate the funds that were used for a tub cut. Let's go try this. This is an $80, $60, $80, $100 piece of equipment that you can get at like a Walgreens or online on Amazon. The user would sit down and then scoop into the tub instead of stepping into and out of the tub. The funding also for a tub cut, this doesn't take into account future decline. So if somebody were to say they're starting to show difficulty stepping into and out of a tub, the funding source pays for a tub cut, and a year or 2 years later, they are actually at a wheelchair level and no longer able to step into a tub. This tub does not support that need. They will now have to request additional funds to pull out and put in a curbless shower. Now, there's one other piece of equipment that I'm not sure if you are aware of. There's this bath commode chair on wheels with a lateral track. Now, this piece of equipment actually will also eliminate the need to do that conversion of the tub shower to a curbless shower. And this is something that I suggest as an interim option, or I call it like a phase 1 and then a phase 2. We can try this piece of equipment and not do the home modification. And if there are still issues after 6 months or so, let's look at what those issues are. Sometimes I have people with cerebral palsy and their legs are still hitting shower walls and we just need to make it larger. But they can still use this piece of equipment. So on the left, you can see that's a bath commode chair on wheels that actually detaches and can roll into the bedroom or the living room, wherever the transfer needs to happen. The caregiver can roll them up and into the bathroom next to the shower, oftentimes over the toilet. And then photos 2 and 3 shows there's actually this, what's called a bridge plate, which the chair can actually laterally track into the tub. And then in photo 3, you can see that somebody now has been transferred into the tub at a seated level. The risk for falls has been reduced. It's just a safer way. This piece of equipment is still expensive, but it's oftentimes cheaper than and less disruptive of pulling out a full tub and putting in a curbless shower. So the 4-step occupational therapist led assessment or process that I use is not just doing the assessment, but actually following that client, that consumer from start to finish. Because what oftentimes happens is asking the consumer or the support planner or the case manager to go out and get the contractor bids is cumbersome and takes up a lot of time, effort, and energy. And those mistakes that I spoke about earlier can occur. So what I suggest is, and this is how I approach my home modification program, is to do the assessment, find out what's medically necessary, looking at that good, better, best, small, medium, and large scale solutions. And then keep moving with the project, stay with the project. Let's go ahead. Okay, the funding source has decided that we want to do X, Y, and Z. Then the occupational therapist is gonna actually stay with them and help with that accessible design. Some projects need drawings and permitting. Talking to landlords is really tricky and nuanced. That's really a difficult thing for to ask a consumer to do, but your healthcare provider can certainly stay on the team and do that. And then project management. So getting those contractor bids, what I do is I create in the step 2, one design for the 3 contractors to bid on, versus what can happen is, even if it's approved, say a curbless shower, tub shower to a curbless shower conversion, you're still going to get 3 different contractors' opinions. What kind of shower pan, what kind of tile, what kind of handheld shower hose are you going to use? If you have one design for those 3 contractors to bid on, you're going to have true apples to apples, versus just going with the cheaper contractor who might not have thought about X, Y, and Z. And then finally, I do project management during construction, making sure the consumer is safe, making sure if there's no other bathroom, what bathroom will they be using during construction? They have respiratory issues. We're going to be keeping an eye on all of those things, and then assess at the end and close out the documents. Oftentimes I see when should the contractor get paid? How do we know that they're actually completed the project? Who's signing off on that? That is a lot to ask of your support planner, and not really appropriate for your consumer to be managing that contractor. So those are things to think about, where what I'll do is I'll follow their deposit, make sure they get paid a percentage, usually it's 50%, and then 25% at the end once they're done, once I sign off on the project. I know some of this is not realistic for a lot of programs, but it's just something to think about as a more comprehensive approach to home modifications, because ultimately what happens is the consumer is thrown into a very disjointed system and has no idea which person they should be talking to. So today, I'm also want to just give examples of those small, medium, and large scale solutions where you're not expected to remember all of them, but just know that they exist. And some of them will replace the need for a full modification, like I spoke about earlier with that tub bench or the bath commode chair on wheels. And then we'll finish with some questions and answers at the end. But this is an example of just raising the shower floor instead of what's happened with this project on the left. They asked me to come in to help figure out if we could do a curbless shower. And what we actually ended up doing is just keep the threshold where it is. We didn't renovate. We lifted the shower floor with a teak shower flooring where the wood slats allows for the water to drain in the existing drain, and put in a little ramp. The photo on the right is very similar. It's a cheaper material that you would see like in a gym or a community bathroom. And again, they just raise the shower floor, eliminating the need to do a construction. Threshold ramps, there's aluminum and rubber. The rubber ones can be customized exactly to the height of the threshold. This can be a really easy, simple solution to where people are really struggling getting into and out of their homes independently. These types of ramps can be sort of life-changing for them. This is a lightweight temporary ramp. I won't go too much into detail into ramps, but oftentimes people will call and request a ramp to be installed. In the residential setting, we don't have to follow ADA exactly. I use it as my guideline, but for example, for this ramp, we might have needed a 10-foot long ramp, 15-foot ramp. So for every inch of rise, for ADA, we would do 1 foot of ramp. For this home, they didn't own it. The user was very small. The husband was actually able, she didn't weigh a lot. That's a transport wheelchair that doesn't weigh a lot. He was able to physically push her up this lightweight temporary ramp. It's actually called a suitcase ramp. It folds up into into one piece, and it's 18 pounds. So I went out to the home did my OT assessment and actually had one of these in my car. I went ahead and just had him try it out to see, okay, is he strong enough? This is for a homebound individual, only leaving for doctor's appointments and otherwise doesn't need a ramp. And so we were able to eliminate the need to install a permanent type ramp once I was able to show that, okay, yes, in fact, he is able to just push her up this slope. Let's see, I think I have a couple more ramp photos I can show you. This one is a aluminum prefabricated ramp. And these ones I like because they don't deteriorate where you'll see wood and concrete ramps tend to deteriorate. These aluminum prefabricated ramps are actually pretty quick to install and take down if maybe they don't own the home and we want to do more of a temporary or versus a permanent solution. This is a good option for somebody who actually does need a long ramp. Now, when we look at costs of ramps, as they start to get longer, the occupational therapist can help determine, are there cheaper ways to get into and out of the home? Vertical platform lifts, not sure if you've seen any of these, but this is a home that the height was about four feet high to get into the home. And so if we have 48 inches of height, then technically we would do a 50-foot long ramp, 48-foot ramp with every 20 feet, we need a 5x5 landing. We're getting into 55, 60 feet of ramp. The cost to install, this home actually had that space on the property. We're talking multiple switchbacks, and the cost of a 60-foot long ramp is actually higher than a vertical platform lift. And again, you're not expected to remember this, but just know that when we're saying we need a ramp, there's actually other possibilities that might be more cost efficient than saying, oh yeah, we're going to get you a ramp. Let's look at other, let's see what other options are available. So the vertical platform lift, so the existing stairs were removed, and then you can see on the left, metal stairs were installed with this system. And then on the right, the wheelchair actually rolls up onto the platform, and then there's a button that the user or the caregiver can push and hold, and the platform comes up to that 4-foot high landing, and then they can get into the home that way. Stair climbers, this is a portable stair climber. If you were to order, say, a fridge to be delivered to your home by Home Depot or Lowe's, and they have a dolly, they come and they deliver it with a dolly. A stair climber is similar to that in that, but it has a motor on it, and it actually goes up, takes the force needed to bring that person in a wheelchair up each step. The stair climber actually goes up each step for the user, for the caregiver. That makes sense. The caregiver would attach the user, the consumer, onto their wheelchair, onto the stair climber, and the climber goes up and down each step. This photo on the left is actually a house that's on the side of a hill. There's no space for a lift, an elevator, or a ramp. And so this portable stair climber actually ended up being the right solution for them, cheaper than all those other solutions. And as long as for that case, I went out to the home and took a good assessment, not only of the user, but also of the caregiver. Are they able to manage? Do they understand sort of the basic concepts of gravity and pushing the button and all of it? So there's some nuance to the stair climbers, but they're actually a really good option for some people who are having issues getting into their homes. The seated chair lifts, chair glides, stair glides. This is another piece of equipment that, as an occupational therapist, I don't recommend. I know that there are scenarios where they are appropriate, but a few issues that I have with them, even though they are heavily marketed to the elderly population, is it still requires 2 transfers, one at the bottom of the stairs, one at the top of the stairs. It doesn't account for future decline. So if we're really looking at aging in place, and in 5 years, maybe just depending on what the prognosis is, maybe what their disease progression is that consumer going to be at a wheelchair level in the near future? Do we need to have a conversation about moving downstairs, or looking at maybe more expensive lift systems like an elevator lift or that stair climber I just showed you, because we know that the decline is going to happen, and the chairlift isn't going to support their future needs for true aging in place. Also needing a piece of equipment. Let's see, at the bottom of the stairs, if they're using a walker or a wheelchair, now you're going to need 2 pieces of equipment, one at the bottom and one at the top of the stairs. So it's just something to think about. This is another piece of equipment that's often requested pretty heavily, and we just need to look at more of a comprehensive approach. So this is the interior wheelchair lifts, more expensive than the chair glide, but if we're looking at future decline, maybe we can look at funding this instead of the chair glide, which isn't going to work in X amount of years. These are freestanding self-supporting rails. This elevator lift system is on its own self-supporting rails and can go through. It's pretty incredible, the systems that they can do now. And so anyways, the elevator, this elevator lift can fit your wheelchair and a caregiver and get somebody from one floor to the other. Definitely more than that $15,000 limit, but just something to know that it exists. Ceiling transfer lifts. This is another option to support independence. This was a gentleman with ALS that we were working with, and his wife wanted to return to work. And he had us install the ceiling transfer lift. He had really pretty good upper extremity control. And there's actually a motor that can call this lift system to his bed. And then he used his upper body to attach himself anchor himself into the ceiling transfer lift, pushes the button, and it actually goes from his bedroom over the toilet and into the bathroom through his own motor. And so his wife actually was able to return to work and also just feel that he was safer getting in and out of bed and not using her strength and brute force to take care of him. So these are expensive, but just good to know that they do exist. They can really, really support independence in the long run. But if those are too expensive, there are all these, just to know that there are also these wall mounted lift systems. If you have somebody who's struggling, their caregivers are struggling getting them in and out of bed, there are typically, when somebody's discharged home to the hospital, the health plan will pay for what's called a floor model Hoyer lift. You'll see them in the hospitals when people are being transferred in and out of bed. They take up a lot of space and are pretty bulky to use. Some families will request a wall mounted lift system to just eliminate the bulkiness of the Hoyer lift and make it a safer transfer into and out of bed. There are these also, just to know that they exist, temporary overhead lifts when that Hoyer lift, or maybe they don't own their home. Maybe the wall mounted lift isn't a possibility because the structural integrity of the wall won't allow it. This system actually is self-standing. It has its own ability to hold itself up, self-standing, and then it has a tracking system over the bed. So this would accommodate that need. Portable shower systems, another piece of equipment. Not sure if it applies to many of your consumers. Out here in Hawaii, we have very small homes with single wall construction. The hallways to get into bathrooms are extremely narrow. And oftentimes I'll meet a consumer who's unable to even access their bedroom. They're now at a wheelchair level and they have a hospital bed that can't make it down those hallways. So they're living in the living room and having bed baths only. This portable shower system can actually hook up to the kitchen faucet. And on the right bottom of the screen, there's actually a gray pump. It's an aquarium pump, and it pumps the water back into the kitchen sink. So it's a shower in the kitchen, but it's way better than bed bathing. I have also had people use them in the utility sink where a washer dryer is, and hook it up to a regular utility sink. The other thing is that the floorboard there, you can see there's a blue tarp. That part velcros up and velcros down. So what happens is you, as a caregiver, you would Velcro it to the ground so it's flat, roll the consumer in, Velcro it up so the water stays inside the tarp, and then turn the aquarium pump on, attached to the kitchen sink. Now you've got a shower, which can be life-changing for a lot of people and help with even just skin hygiene and eliminate or reduce the need for bed bathing. Almost done. I think I have one or two more examples here, just to know when you back at the start, I spoke about design. How can an occupational therapist help with the design of your shower? So say we are approving converting a curbless shower, a tub shower to a curbless shower. It is the process to then have the families go get 3 contractor bids. Well, you're going to get apples to oranges. What about looking at one type of conversion? There are prefabricated shower systems that are cheaper than if a contractor were to do their own shower pan and demo and slope the floor to a new drain. These prefabricated shower systems are cheaper. They require less labor. It just depends on what the budget is. But if we have one design that is requiring that the contractor use a prefabricated curbless shower over his own customized shower pan, now we're looking closer to apples to apples as far as your estimate goes. And just to know that there are these prefabricated shower systems, and they don't look terrible. I mean, sometimes you do need to look at what the current home is looking like and how can we match that. But just to know that these systems exist. And then finally, just wanted to let you know that if you are wanting to learn more about home modifications, we do at USC have the executive certificate in home modifications. It's offered 4 to 5 times annually. It's about a 3-month long program. It's geared towards working professionals. And you will learn a ton more information. And so if you're interested in that, you can reach out to myself or Chelsea, and we can help get you set up for that. And then that's the way to get in touch with me, Kat. There's my website and phone number, and I can answer questions from the group.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's see, Joyce Falconhan asked, is the sliding shower commode readily available? I haven't seen this before. So
Yeah.
looking to buy.
Yep, this one. Yeah, these are really exciting to see. There's a wide variety of them. Well, not a wide variety. There's 2 available that I've seen. There's one, the cheaper version, which I'm not sure I'm a fan of how cheap it's made. So I wouldn't, I'm not recommending it. I would say take a look, but it's called Shower Buddy. I think it's on showerbuddy.com. This one here that I'm showing in this photo, it's called a New Product, NUPRODX. I can put that in the chat. This one, the New Product is built with really durable aluminum makeup, but it's pretty, they're expensive. So the Shower Buddy and the New Product are 2 different price ranges. I think the New Product, you have to go through a vendor, like a durable medical supply company, where it's Shower Buddy you can get online. Now, one thing to say about getting things online, what happens even with those chair glides I was showing you, I really suggest using a vendor, because it might be cheaper online, but now if you're doing it online, who's going to install it? Who's going to make sure it fits? Who's going to make sure if it breaks down or it's not quite right, that it was actually done correctly? If you buy it online, like a Shower Buddy, there's no follow through. If you were to use a vendor, a local vendor, now you have somebody who's come to the home, they're going to install it, they're going to do some training. I have gotten this New Product system approved by Medicaid health plans. Don't quote me on that. You have to go through your own process, but I've written up letters of medical necessity, and not through a regular DME program, but through home modifications. I have gotten it covered because they've looked at it, like they were saying at the start of this presentation, that everything's a case-by-case basis. I think a few families, they don't own their home. This was just the cheaper option than doing a conversion, and so the health plan actually paid for it. But it's, again, I mean, having your consumers or the support planners or case managers manage these requests is difficult for them. I really recommend using a healthcare provider like an OT to really follow the recommendations all the way through.
Yeah, that's a great point. Christina asked, will we get sent a copy of the PowerPoint presentations? Yes, we should be able to provide those. And then Carol asked, do you recommend the OT work with the contractors to ensure they are making modifications that meet the client's needs to avoid construction errors?
Yes. So back to our first example of that contractor who did that shower that was incorrect. If the OT is not only doing the assessment, but the design, so that they really are, because the contractors are not medically trained. So they're going to hear curbless shower, ADA. If you have a contractor saying I'm ADA trained, it's still, I'm still not comfortable going with that contractor. I really encourage, if you can take one thing home from today, is make sure that the recommendations, the modifications are also approved by a healthcare professional, because the contractors, they're just not trained to know what their needs are. And nor would the consumer feel comfortable telling them about their bowel bladder program and where they need to have their legs and all of those things. So I think I'm rambling a little bit, but I think you understand that really the way the process, I really recommend the process to be to eliminate all of those issues is the OT needs to be with them from start to finish.
Yeah, and I put in the chat, that's why we had our presenters at the start of this from Maryland Medicaid to share that information about the environmental assessment process. If someone is eligible for that process, that should be the first step, and the supports planning agency should be assisting that person through. You know, and this is, I mean, we have in our housing programs under the Maryland Partnership for Affordable Housing, we have people who are in, you know, primarily in low-income housing tax credit properties, and they should be able to get the modifications that they need. However, as you pointed out, Kat, if the modifications are done to the unit and the individual has specific medical needs that aren't necessarily accounted for by a regular contractor, they're really missing out on an opportunity to be able to have certain functionalities built into the unit that an occupational therapist is trained to assess and look at. So there really is a need for that kind of that conversation to take place. And I know sometimes, you know, it's really, that's why we encourage case managers, supports planners to talk with property managers when they have a resident in their building that needs those modifications done. So it's a dialectic process, as they say.
It is, and it takes a really long time. That's the other thing I often have to promise when I meet the consumers and I'm doing my assessments. I really do let them know that this is going to be a long process, and to be patient, but know that, you know, we're going to stay with them until they get these modifications done. And just kind of make sure that your program is trying to do the same if possible.
Absolutely. Well, are there any other questions from the group? I did extend the time for this just in case there were some more questions, and I think we kind of stayed within the time period, original time period, which is great, honestly. But happy to take more questions. Will you send the slides to everyone? Yes, if you registered for this session, I have your email information, so you should expect to get those slides via email as a follow-up, and this is recorded. So my intention is once the recording's finished processing, I will put it on the Maryland Department of Disabilities YouTube page for viewing, so anyone can refer back to it as needed. Looks like we have another question. Do you have Maryland Medicaid individuals' contact information? I do. Are you all comfortable with me sharing that information? I know it's like we have a couple people. Harold, are you comfortable with that? And Ashanti, Londa?
Sure. Yeah, this is
Okay,
Harold. And yeah, sure.
cool.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, great. Oh, we have a couple folks who've raised their hands. Let me see. All right, Paul Anderson. I'm gonna.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yeah, so thank you. I had a question kind of following up along what you're recommending, Kat, as far as the OT following along through the process of the modifications getting done. And I don't know, this is maybe a big question, or I don't know who's actually intended to answer it, but you know, does Maryland have a process for that? I'm new to this. I'm a housing support specialist, and I'm trying to help folks to maybe go through this process, but I don't know, like I know there's one person I'm working with and they've had an OT come out and do an evaluation for home modifications. but that's kind of as far as I've gotten in the process. So does that include the funding for that OT to stick with this person through work that gets done? Or is there another, like, what funds that OT to stay with them? And I don't know who to target that question to, but is there a mechanism to, support what you're recommending, Kat?
Yeah, I mean, that probably is a question for maybe for Harold. I could tell you on my end, I've had to really, and from that USC course that I'm teaching, a number of occupational therapists take the course, and I encourage them to advocate for staying with the client from start to finish. And I've done that here. And so our program has noticed over the years, support planners, case managers are just not able to manage these programs. So what happens is the assessment gets done, but then the modifications don't get done. And so through the years, I've had them add to their individual service plan, their action plan, to actually fund my time as a consultant to stay with them until it's done. And so I'm not sure if that's something your program would consider doing. But if maybe there's a sort of a look back on, I often ask people to go I encourage OTs to go back and find out if the modifications that they recommended got completed and why didn't they, and then ask them to really try and stay on. It's a great question.
And I'll just say that's something that I'll take back to my management group, because I think that's a great idea. We don't necessarily work with the environmental or the occupational therapist directly, but it makes sense, this model that you're describing. So it might be something that we may implement down the road.
Great.
Excellent.
Yeah, I know, just speaking myself, being new to being a housing support specialist, I would feel like I would be at the mercy of the contractor that's saying they're ADA compliant, that this is the way you want to go, because I don't have the experience or the training as an OT to know that is this really the best way to go. I can follow the recommendations, but from the eval, but yeah. So thank you. It's encouraging to hear that will go into consideration.
Now, for the Community First Choice program and the assessments, some of the things that I have seen on the assessments are specific dimensions and what needs to be detailed in a what modifications, such as a ramp or a bathroom remodel or a shower remodel, whatever you want to call it. I've actually seen a couple of times like diagrams on what it should look like, but not that step-by-step process like Kat was suggesting. And as Harold said, that was something that really perked my ears in listening to your presentation. So I mean, we have, I think, a little bit of that just when they do their assessment. The contractors that go in there blindly, they know they need to install a specific size in a specific way, but not that guidance throughout.
Yeah. Oh, good. And where it can also help is when we do need to stay within those funds, and we know that we're getting close to that 15,700, that's where the OT can really help justify what the contractor is thinking about doing. I'm going to cut corners here. Is that okay? Who's telling him that that's he or she, that's okay? Who's approving that cut back to make it still within that budget? Those are all things that, it really should fall back on a consultant who can really justify the funds appropriately.
Great. We have another question here. Yolanda asks, is there an income cap for the persons to participate in the Medicaid program?
Medicaid is income restricted. I don't know the exact total. That's not my purview, but I know it's about 200, maybe 2,000, 2,100 a month. It's a very small total of someone's assets per month in order to qualify for Medicaid. So, if you're a decent income or pension or whatever this individual might have, more than likely they may not be in Medicaid. There are waiver programs that they can access Medicaid programs, but it depends on sometimes financial, sometimes disability. Each one has different restrictions.
Landis, I saw that you had your hand raised, so sorry, I
Yes,
skipped you.
hello.
Mhm.
Thank you. One of the things that I have found as a support planner is that once we have the evaluation and the recommendations for the environmental assessment, we get the bids. But then when we are submitting the plan of service, it takes so long to get it reviewed that the bids are no longer valid. And so I don't know if there's something that can be done, because I personally have one individual, the plan of service has not been approved. It's not moved for over like 200 days. And so I know COVID, I want to be fair, COVID did a thing to the whole system that's not normal. But when it's for an individual that is a fall risk and they pass out and they need side by side assistance so they're not falling, it would seem as though that would, I don't know how to get it to move forward. It's stuck in the system, and it's frustrating for not only myself, but also for the guardian and then the consumer, so it's, yes, I don't know if it would be different if you had an OT actually seeing it from start to finish, because it has to go through the review process. So that in itself, the review process is very lengthy. And when you have these bids, they expire. And then the next thing the support planner gets is, we need more bids. But then you get more bids and then it still takes, so that's my issue with it. I think it's a good process to have the OT do it. It would be nice if we could implement that. So thank you.
Well, Landis, I'll just respond.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is a systemic issue, and I would say that you just have to reach out. I encourage you to engage and let those needs be known. But the bottom line is that, we have so many plans and they're constantly coming in, and so the only way that I know that humans communicate with other humans is to reach out and to periodically check on the status or put it in urgent, or that really is the only way to get our attention, because just like that one person has bids, we've got another person with a crisis that's in the hospital, or we've got competing priorities daily. So just get in a habit of reaching out periodically to the staff so that we can try to stay on top of it as best we can.
Yes, and to piggyback that, I definitely encourage you to, if you know the exact reviewer, reach out directly to that reviewer through email or telephone number. We do have an urgency process as well. If the case needs to be submitted urgently and this participant needs this environmental assessment or adaptation, you can submit that plan of service, as an urgent priority request. So there are ways to connect with us, so ensure that that participant is health and safe.
And I would,
Yeah, I was going to add one more thing, at least from the Maryland Department of Health side, is if you're having issues with maybe an individual reviewer, myself, I'm a clinical supervisor, and then Faria Bajwa, she's, the plan of service supervisor. Feel free, to take it the next step and reach out to a supervisor. So, you're not just repeatedly, contacting one person, you have other people to contact besides, one individual reviewer. So, all suggestions, we get it. I get emails asking for updates a lot, and I try to be sensitive to those environmental adaptations, because yes, there is a timeliness to those. So, that's it.
yeah, and I was just going to say, I see that as well, that systemic issue of just sort of home modifications being stalled. And I again, kind of keeping an OT on the team. I meet with the Department of Health once a month, and we go over those more crisis cases, and I check in with the families and really figure out, okay, this is not safe. You know, what is our action plan now? Because we now need to go get more quotes. I've seen that as well, where the quotes, you know, expire and we need a current bid. And so maybe there's ways to look at exceptions, but then the contractors are going to increase their prices. So it's a swirling situation, but thank you for the question. That's really a really good question. And I hope that case gets handled soon.
All right, great. So do we have any more final questions from the group? Don't see any. Okay, well, I really appreciate everyone joining us today. Thank you to our presenters from Maryland Medicaid and Kat. Really appreciate everyone's time and the great conversation and questions. This is really exciting presentation. We haven't done anything like this before. So I'm happy that, you know, people were engaged and had a lot of thoughts and thoughtful questions about the content. So thanks again. If you register for this session, again, I will be sending out a link to the recording to everyone who registered, as well as copies of the PowerPoints to folks. Please give me a couple days for that. That does take me a little while, so you will not be receiving it tomorrow. Please anticipate getting that in about 1 week's time. Yeah, appreciate everyone's participation today, and have a good rest of your afternoon. Thanks, everyone. Take care.